Total budget is $130,500, and the basis for the member assessments is a revised formula that last year, one of the reasons we extended an additional quarter was because all of the member agencies' contributions are voluntary. If an agency has a concern with pointing up their requested share, we have a long discussion about what it is and what it shouldn't be. And East Bay Mud expressed an interest only in sharing equally to the expenses last year. So last year, the total budget, which was similar to that, was split one-third, one-third, one-third. One of the things we've done over the past year, I guess some would say we kind of beat on East Bay Mud a little more. But anyways, through a series of discussions, East Bay Mud has agreed that they would contribute 50% of the budget for this year, with 25% being provided by Calaveras and 25% being provided by Amador. And when I say Calaveras, it's the Calaveras entities, and that's why I'm here, is to explain there were discussions, I believe, between CPUD, CCWD, and Calaveras County about how to come up with that $32,625. And there's a similar conversation going on in Amador for a like amount of money, and that's why I'm going over to the Amador Board of Supervisors today. There's a lot of uncertainty about what UMR is, what are we doing, is it a good investment? And so this is a good discussion. It's a good opportunity. And then finally, so looking forward, what are the advantages? This is a discussion we have at the UMR board all the time. You know, why do we have sustaining value to our members? From the regional water resource planning perspective, we are an approved regional water management group, so we're going to participate. The region's going to participate, and its member agencies are going to participate in the $5 billion Prop 84 programs. It needs to go through a regional water management group. UMR is it. It could be something else, but it is at the moment. I think as a regional group with representatives from all the various water and county agencies, it's an appropriate organization for doing the regional water resource planning. It's also a good venue for addressing water resource conflicts if it's used in that regard. And we're also a public agency, like we were back when we were looking to acquire Project 137. We're a public agency that can represent the region's interest in other broader forums. You know, there's a lot going on with the Bay Delta right now. And the Colony Forum is another one that we've been participating in. There's also some organizational efficiencies that come across with UMRA. One is we end up spreading the costs across multiple agencies. So when we're putting together a grant application that, like the West Point project, putting that together, that application would perhaps benefit Calaveras by half, or maybe Amador by half, depending on how that all shakes out. But all the organizations, including East Bay Mud, are paying for the development of the application. So there's some efficiency that goes with that. And obviously the centralized grant function and responsibility. And then similar to our lessons with Project 137, it's an interesting dynamic when you've got, quote-unquote, the liberal legislators from the East Bay with the, quote-unquote, the conservative legislators from the foothills. When both put their shoulder to a common cause, the benefits are sometimes more than the simple addition would suggest. So that's concludes my presentation. Questions?
Steve, did you have something you wanted to say before you open it up?
No, it's just important that we make some kind of decision, because the whole operation is hung up, including the budget, by the county's deliberations on this. So the desire is to give staff some instruction as to how to proceed today in relation, and what our relationship is to this agency.
Are there some questions from the board on this?
You show an amount for Calaveras County. How is that split between the county and CCWD?
It's actually three. It's CWD, CPUD, and Calaveras County. And right now, the thinking is generally that it be evenly split, I believe. Or is there a new?
No, it's not.
There. Okay. What's the? Yeah, let's take a look at what the most recent.
Hi, Ed Pattison, Calaveras County Water District, Water Resource Management. I'm basically here to morally support Rob and answer questions, and this is one of the items. We met several months ago here at the CAO's office with CCWD directors, a couple of the supervisors and staff. And basically, I was in the genesis of trying to apportion equitably the cost share for the Calaveras entities. My proposal was to break it down by connection. CCWD obviously having more would pay more. CPUD having less would pay less. But what to do with Calaveras County? Calaveras County, similar to other discussions I've had with other regions and counties dealing with these kinds of programs, are typically counties are considered large agencies. So basically, I equated it equally to CCWD, but considering Calaveras County's difficult budget, I mean, we all have difficult budgets. I put myself out there and was willing to suggest that CCWD would pay most of the local cost share, which I think the slide was presented $32,000 and some change. So CCWD would pay about half of that. CPUD, based on the connections, would be about $5,000, and Calaveras County would be about $10,000. Those are rough numbers. Plus, I think those are underestimates, but that was the logic behind the cost sharing.
Yes, and I believe that coupled with some budget cuts to the agency led to when we had sticker shock at close to 13,000.
It was 35,000, but the reduction in the budget brought down.
They reduced the
and I
budget.
think our total was like $10,386.
That was about right. Yeah.
That's for this year.
Yes.
Yes.
Every year is a new year.
And Rob, I understand you to say that East Bay Mud's doing 50% this coming fiscal year. So it could change the next fiscal year.
It's possible it could change in the FY 2012. It's possible, although, you know,
We'll deal with it
I'm
next
hopeful
year.
this will settle as being a well-reasoned and negotiated. When I talked to the East Bay Mud folks, I observed that if you look at East Bay Mud as kind of representing two counties, Portions Valley and Contra Costa, I said, Amdo and Calaveras, they shouldn't be looked at as financially equal to East Bay Mud, where it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You should look at it, okay, East Bay Mud's got kind of two counties, and you've got two counties, and each county contributes at 25%. Since East Bay Mud covers two counties, it covers 50%. They talked about it and got comfortable with it. I would hope they'd be comfortable with it on a going forward basis. But one of the swords of the JPA cuts both ways is, the JPA is written in a way that the authority can't obligate its member to pay something it doesn't want to pay. So it's a voluntary contribution to the budget. And that's good because it makes everybody feel like, okay, it's my choice, but it does require some juggling along the way.
Well, let me give my comments then. We went into this and we formed this for one specific reason, and that was the disposition of the PG&E assets and what entities would own them. That objective was achieved. It seems to me that at that point the association should have gone away, but this is a government body, and it seems to me with government bodies we are always experiencing mission creep, particularly if the original mission gets achieved. And so, I look at this and say, boy, here's a classic example of a whole lot of mission creep. And we're doing a lot of things that, in my opinion, we would never have formed this agency to do, such as develop wildfire behavior models, fund public school watershed education programs, develop water conservation plan template. We have all kinds of things through here that, quite frankly, we would have never have formed the joint powers agency to achieve. How many more education programs for children do we need on the environment and water conservation, et cetera? I mean, they're inundated with them, and we're all inundated with them too. When our bills from all the water agencies come in, we get inundated with the stuff. And it seems to me that in many ways, what we're doing is totally duplicative of the water agencies. I'll just speak for our county. We have Calaveras County Water District, represents the whole county. Why is the Upper McCollum River Watershed Agency applying for Prop 84 money to do a West Point project of $1,451,000 plus? Why isn't CCWD doing it? I mean, do we need this agency to do what CCWD could do or the Amador Water District could do? Because this whole agency is just living. I mean, the only one reason for this to exist is to obtain Prop 84 funds to do projects in the respective counties. So my question is, why would this agency be more likely to get Prop 84 money than the respective agencies in the counties? Whether in this county it would be CCWD and in Amador it would be the Amador Water District. Is, like we have a COG, and we formed before we even formed the COG, we had an LTC, and we did a joint county agreement, much like this, with Amador and Alpine and Calaveras, so we could be sort of regional, and we would be higher on the priority list for the California Transportation Commission when it came to projects, and that we could pool our funding sources. And that's been very successful, in my opinion. At least it seems to me to have been successful. I mean, if we hadn't done it, maybe we would have been just as successful applying individually. I don't know. But it seems to have worked. So I guess my question to you is do we gain some benefit in applying for Prop 84 funds, which is this whole program, by being a, quote, regional entity, though I don't see that we're pooling funds like the COG does, where we have funds allocated to us. This is just a grant application. So what do we gain? I mean, what efficiency do we gain by having this organization applying for the Prop 84 funds rather than the respective agencies?
But I hear your concerns, and I understand and can relate to them. The one thing that UMRA is necessary for is only a regional water management group can do a regional plan. Calaveras can't do the regional plan for the region. Amador can't do the regional plan for the region. It has to be, in essence, a JPA to do the regional plan. So that's a function that UMRA or a similar organization needs to do, and with it would come all the costs and responsibilities.
So that's a valid reason to continue with the organizational structure.
Correct.
Seems to me if what you're saying is accurate.
That's a piece of it. And so, in response to your other question, yes, CCWD could apply for a Prop 84 grant, as could CPUD, as could Amador County. They can all individually apply for grants. One of the problems with that, obviously, is you end up with agencies within a region individually applying for grants that are going to be competing against one another. And the deliberation over which grants to get awarded would be left with BWR as opposed to the deliberation that takes place at a local government board.
You're saying Prop 84 is distributed by region?
Yes.
And it's not just a statewide application process?
No, they have, I didn't include the slide, but there are, I believe, what they call them funding areas. I believe there's 11 funding areas. We're in a funding area that has presently 4 approved regions and several others that may get approved down the road. We're in with the San Joaquin folks, the Northeast San Joaquin Groundwater Banking Authority. We have Madera County is in there, and then East Contra Costa County is a region. So we're competing for those implementation project dollars, these dollars, against folks within our funding area.
Okay, and within that region that we're in, Amador and Calaveras and Alpine are all within that region?
Yes, but they are part of our family.
Yeah, I mean, they're part of this joint powers.
Yes, exactly, and they're part of our...
Are there other mother lode counties that are in our region that are not part of this this joint powers agreement?
Are there other agencies? I'm sorry.
No, you mean like Tuolumne has an
No,
integrated regional water
Right,
plan?
the Stanislaus area to the south of us
Fan,
has its own region that it's working on. And then there's a region immediately north of us that includes El Dorado and Placer and Yuba County called Cabby. Soon as American, Yuba River, Fairview. And then there's another region to the west, which is the San Joaquin region. So everybody's been forming these regions.
We're representing then, by having this authority, we represent the mother lode counties within our region.
Exactly. We represent that white area.
Is that an accurate statement? Okay. Then my last question is, if this grant, for instance, is awarded for the West Point water main and tank replacement project of $1,450,000, will that, obviously the agency will apply for the funding, receive the funding, then do you give that funding to CCWD to implement the project, or do you implement it yourself as a
No.
interregional agency?
No, we don't want to be involved in that with the agency.
That's one of the issues we have with the COG, is quite frankly, the COG wants to deliver projects within the unincorporated area, and we're saying, wait a minute, we'd like to deliver projects. So my question is, do you deliver the project, or will CCWD deliver the project if in fact the funding is secured?
Ideally, under the circumstance we've talked about, we deliver the money. And the agencies deliver the projects.
And that would be CCWD, like, for instance, the West Point project, which is the one we're applying for. That would be CCWD because that's their jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, and CCWD initiated that based on their analysis of the need.
Yeah. When the program came out, when the program came out and the parameters for the implementation grants were known,
Right.
So a whole series of communications went out to different organizations, and that list was longer when we started, and we had a whole bunch of discussions. Because one of the things we want to do is, it's not just a wish list of projects. The projects have to fit within the state's criteria.
I guess my comment is, I suspect I'm going to be supportive of this, but I just hope you don't let the mission creep get too broad, and we're starting to do schools, and we're starting to do all kinds of things. I think you need to keep yourself fairly narrowly defined, so we get good accountability and we spend the money on projects that really matter, and not just watch the money go away and there's no way of accounting for whether we had a productive spending that actually did something productive for us.
Supervisor Tuffanelli had something.
Well, I was just going to answer Tom's question about the function of UMRA on those grants is just the administration of the funds. They do not deliver projects. That's up to the individual water agencies.
Nor has there ever in its history been an inclination toward that.
My question is,
No, there's been, I don't know if it's causes peace in your life or not, but there's been no discussion at the honor board to pull in work from the agencies. In fact,
it sounds like you have a very consensus cooperative with people working together.
We do.
And you get your priorities, and then you present them as a unified voice before the state. And I think that's a good model.
Our consensus works really good until you start talking about who's taller.
Right. That's where
until you go over who gets left out, what projects get left out.
I would like.
That's fine. You answered my question.
I would like to add one thing in response to one of the issues Tom raised, which is that one of the most important contributions that has been made by this organization was the creation of the watershed test assessment tool. And the interesting question, since they don't administer things, is that when you create such a tool, which could be used by all kinds of primarily county organizations to figure out what they're doing on the watershed, how you pass that. If they don't administer it, what is the receiving what are the receiving entities to something of that magnitude? It's a significant technological creation here, and I think that's one of the big issues. It's not a mission creep issue. It's a question of how do you pass the baton from the creation of such a tool to the use of it on the ground. We're the on-the-ground entity, and Amador is the on-the-ground entity for this, along with the water districts. But that's been, given lack of resources, that's probably the biggest issue facing this organization is can it not only create the tools and the science, but can it pass it along in a way that will be used.
Are there any discussions or questions from the public? Yeah, Ed, could you please come up? Thank you.
I would like to make a few comments, and I do want to start off by saying I completely understand Supervisor Tryon's comments, and I feel I have the same comments or share the same comments, but I would like to educate the board a little bit. There's an inexorable shift in water management in this state toward watersheds, and the reality is this county is blessed with resources that is probably some of the best in the state, and as a result we're in the crosshairs of many agencies downstream and state agencies that oversee regulation and management of water. And I've thought a lot about this topic, and the only way that we're going to survive this paradigm shift toward water management and the upcoming battles over water is by sticking together locally, working diligently. And I see the Upper McComely River Watershed Authority as a strategic regional voice that we as local agencies can work through to preserve and protect the rich resources that this county has. We're not going to be able to do it individually. We can't afford it. We don't have the numbers or population. And so I encourage the board to participate in UMRA as I do for the same IRWM south of us, which is the Tuolumne-Stanislaus and covers the Highway 4 corridor south that's watershed to the Stanislaus. And the other reason I encourage the county to stay involved and be a leader in these couple of IRWMs is that I do want to, Rob, I thought, missed one aspect of the IRWM program. It really does tie land use planning with water management. Land use, the state and the nation realize you can't do one without the other. And regulations from now through the future are going to be tying land and water even closer together. And they're going to be doing it through general plan updates, urban water management plan updates, and these IRWMs. And it's becoming more and more dramatic. There is another funding source that Rob did mention besides Prop 84 here, and that is 1E, the stormwater flood management bond that was passed by California voters at the same time. Millions of dollars available. And as I work within UMRA and through CCWD and assist the county with Cosgrove Creek and other projects, I'm always looking for other funding sources to try to fund Cosgrove Creek. The simple reality on Cosgrove is that it scores high on all of these kinds of programs. If we were ready to build something, I'm pretty sure we'd be successful in garnering some state funding to match federal funding to really minimize any out-of-pocket from private landowners in the area or ratepayers. So another reason why I think the county really needs to take a leadership role in this. And I did want to comment on the Stewardship Through Education program that UMRA funds here. To my knowledge, and maybe Supervisor Walensky can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the only program that funds field trips for the local students of Calaveras County and Amador to actually get out in the watershed and implement some of their classroom exercises, in a watershed, in the stream. And, thinking back to my youth, that was pretty powerful. And I think it's a good program. And the fact that East Bay Mud's willing to pick up 50%, I have my own opinions about what the funding ratio should be, but I think 50% is pretty good. So we're getting what's the term I'd like to say? We're getting some good return on the value by keeping UMRA leadership in the area. And I think that if these grants are successful, we're bringing more dollars into this county than we're paying as the various small local cost shares that each agency is contributing. So if you keep that in mind, I think you'll see there's a value to this. And keeping in mind that each year's budget is project-driven, and as long as it sticks closely with the goals and objectives of the JPA, I think it's a good program. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments on this or questions?
Madam Chair, Supervisors, I'm Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. I agree with Tom that we have to be careful when we form another layer of government. And I also admire the amount of collaboration that's occurring here. It looks like everything is positive, but not very many negatives. We don't know what's coming down the road. We also don't know completely what the source of future planning philosophy is going to be. One of the things that we have a concern with is the philosophy of reducing dams and hydro projects in order to have a smaller footprint to be more sustainable. And that type of thinking we really reject. We feel that the water districts and like any company should be seeking to provide its product far into the future, and it should be seeking to provide more rather than less. The taxpayers are aware that the cost of water with CCWD is quite high. If you wanted to hook up a home, it'll cost like $11,000 for water and sewer. The only competition they have on some of the larger parcels is the ability that people have to put in their own septic system and their own wells. But there's limitations on practical limitations on parcel size for that. I like to go fishing. I go on Lake Tulloch fishing, and I tried this artificial worms called gulp. And I discovered, maybe from the heat or something, but these worms, they look so real, but they stuck together. And it's very difficult to get the worms separated so you can put them on your hook. Not that it'd do any good, because I very seldom catch anything. I think the fish are smarter than I am. But as these things are sticking together, it's kind of an analogy to what we can get into, like we recently experienced with COG. We found that a new power structure was being created, and it was operating against the interests of the people. And thanks to Supervisor Tuffanelli, and four others, or three others of you, that came to a screeching halt, which was good. And that means that we went back to representative government.
Could you get onto this?
Okay,
Segue
anyway,
back to this,
yeah,
please.
I would caution that look very closely as this develops, and it's for mission creep, and watch carefully its purposes. If it is to develop projects, it seems to be a good thing, and also it's a good thing that you have the power not to participate if you wish not to. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments or questions?
Joe Kelly, this gentleman brought up, I believe, something about general plan and this being involved within general plan or some attachment to it later. One of my concerns throughout this whole concept is infrastructure needed, infrastructure cost, and how it's going to be paid for. Thank you, and thank you for your presentations. I thoroughly understand more than I did before, but I think we need to look at a whole lot more. The concept of this cost on an annual basis, and based on projects the cost goes up. I think perhaps maybe the county within its budget process should start listing this type of issue, CSAC, RCRC, and any other agencies that have cost to the county as an item that the people can see as cost values. And I think that would help with the transparency and understanding by the citizen. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, we do that. If you look at the budget book, it shows each of the organizations this county contributes to is in the county's budget book.
When I looked, I looked at under the Board of Supervisors for CSAC and RCRC, and I didn't find it. Thank you.
Is Does anyone else have any other comments? Okay, Mr. Thomas? It's my turn. Okay, raising low, did you have something? Go ahead.
Well, we've discussed this $10,386. I just want to get clarity on where it's coming from. Is this a,
General fund,
General fund.
all right.
if we do it.
$10,000.
That's good.
Okay, Rob, raising Lower Bear, that's been like 30 years on the list. Is that still on the list?
That is a project that Amador Water Agency is the
Right.
lead member agency on, and there have been some discussions with PG&E about the project, but PG&E's interest right now apparently is looking at a pump storage facility in that watershed, and I'm not aware of any progress
Okay,
recently.
thank you. I'm on the advisory committee for Department of Water Resources. I've been 2 terms, and I'm going to do my 3rd term. And I like that you've morphed, how you've morphed into an IRWMP, is that right? Because I know that's what you have to do. Because we discuss in our advisory committee that most grants are going to be given to the regional groups versus individuals. Okay. Other concern I have, and maybe Ed can do it, is on the Stanislaus IRWMP. I mean, I get the minutes, and I don't go to the meetings. Are they going to come to us and ask for an economic share to participate the same as this? Because it's the same thing. It's just a different watershed.
It's one of our concerns too, and in the past we equally funded it with Tuolumne Utilities District. So in essence, CCWD picked up the debt tab twice. I don't think that was the state's intent. So I think this is an area that we need to carefully monitor and discuss. And I've already put TUD on notice. We're not going to share equally in future funding of the Tuolumne Stanislaus, because when you see that slide, there's a very narrow sliver of Calaveras County in that IRWMP, and I think that the cost to this county and CCWD should be consistent with the geographic area. So, but your concern is valid.
I mean, because if we're doing it on this one, I can just see it coming for the Stanislaus.
Well, I think there could be a value that needs to be carefully examined. But again, I think when we look at the map, we need to consider the geographic area in terms of what's the equitable cost sharing.
Okay, I was interested in why this took such a large portion of Calaveras near the Stanislaus versus the IRWMP for the Stan. I mean,
those are good. That's a good question. I'm not sure, Rob, if you were around when we did our. I think you were around. The geographic areas of IRWNs were all locally driven by local agencies and citizens that got together and really talked about how do we break down the various watershed and hydrologic regions that we feel we can locally manage. Rob mentioned the CABI IRWM program. It's huge. It spans 4 watersheds, and I feel bad for those agencies that meet within that group, because from what I understand, it takes half a day just to drive from one side of the region to the other. That's not the case for the McCollum, Amador, Calaveras. You can see that it's not that big of a region. But I was the one that added I asked for the Calaveras watershed to be included within the McCollum because of the interaction between the McCollum and the Calaveras, the fact that CCWD has rights in the McCollum and has rights to Calaveras water at New Hogan, the conjunctive use effort, interregional conjunctive use, and some of those other projects. So there was a good logic for including the McCollum and the Calaveras within the same IRWMP, and that's the reason why it ended up the way it did. But beyond that, there was really no other reason why the Calaveras was added.
Okay.
Hope that answers.
Well, I guess when I look at it as a county as a whole, what we're doing here is I can see that being a discussion with the Stanislaus asking Calaveras to participate in that cost. I mean, in the case of the McCollum, it morphed from what its original purpose is to an IRWMP, and which is really why we have the supervisor on it.
There's going to be, on the Tuolumne Stanislaus, there's other local water agencies involved as well. There's Utica Power Authority, so the
Right.
wastewater agency, City of Angels, so they will be contributing financially to the Tuolumne Stanislaus.
Now, well, if I was attending those meetings, which I'm not, but maybe if I don't attend them, we won't get charged. But they're going to say, well, you're doing it for the MOAC, why aren't you doing it for the Stanislaus? I mean, I just put that out because these are general fund dollars, and it's important for the county of Calaveras as this group to be part of this for water purposes, then it's just as important on the Stanislaus. And, and what is it that the county's getting out of it? And it goes back to what you said, water and land use are intricately tied.
And what's important for the Tuolumne Stanislaus that I added, when you look at the southwest corner, that grayed out area, that's actually not within the Stanislaus watershed. And there was a big controversial argument, maybe I should say discussion, because these IRWMPs are consensus-based, and we say we're discussing, but really there's a lot of local arguments about this or that. And this is one of the very controversial arguments or discussions we had. Does that get included in the Tuolumne Stanislaus? Because that is the Little John's watershed, which is contributory to the Delta directly. And there were those in Tuolumne County that did not want it included because they did not want to be a part of any Delta quagmire and the issues that result from that. However, Lake Tolek is in that area. We have significant potential growth in that area. There's water supply and water quality issues. CCW and the county have a lot at stake in that area, and I argued vehemently that it must be included in the Tuolumne Stanislaus, and I ended up winning that argument. It is now a part of the Tuolumne Stanislaus IRWMP. And as I mentioned, there's going to be significant value in the future by having that area contained within that IRWMP.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Mr.
yeah.
Passon. And as you know, I have attended a couple of the Stanislaus IRWMP meetings, but lately we've gotten notices of a meeting and then cancellation, notices and cancellation. But when are they going to have another meeting?
Part of the reason there was they only want to meet if there's topics of merit to make best use of everybody's time. And what's happened with the state, because of the economic debacle that the state's incurring right now, they have been tardy in all of their guidelines and Prop 84, Prop 1E, and Rob can probably provide a little more information if you're interested. But really, the state's been driving the deadlines. The original deadlines that were set for many of these programs, all of them, none of them have been met. And so we are just reacting and responding to the state's directives and opportunities. So we meet when we have something concrete that we can talk about. But there is the concern that even if there isn't something of substance the state has for us to talk about, we should meet at least quarterly to keep that momentum and energy going. And that comment, I think, has been made by a number of people within that organization.
Mr. Tuffanelli?
My question, I guess, Ed, you can stay up there, but for Bob also, as I look at this map, I'm seeing that this region extends into Alpine County also. Were they ever asked to join the JPA?
They're on it.
They are
On it? Because I'm
Terry
looking at...
Woodrow
Yeah,
is the
Terry,
rep.
you remember Terry? You'll see her at the October 1st meeting.
Well, as I look at the budget, I don't see any Alpine County contribute to the funding here.
because of their remote representation in the JPA on the region, and a relatively small portion of it, and the fact that there haven't been any single projects or expenses that have been incurred by UMRA for their benefit yet, they have not been asked to complete. All of the activities that UMRA's been involved in have been related to Amador and Calaveras activities.
Okay, well, I'm going to be voting for this because I think this JPA is the viable avenue to receive Prop 484 funding here. I think it's the avenue to which it was sold to the people of California. This will be used for water management, clean water. And I think for those reasons that it will bring, in the way it's set up and what it's done, that it will bring those funds to this county for the use in Calaveras County. So for those reasons, I will vote for it.
Well, there's really not a resolution on this. It's really giving direction. And the direction we would be giving is, yes, Ms. Boyce, we would like you to put 10,300 and whatever it was Gary said on the list of items for the budget when we have final budget. I mean, that's how I see it. We can't, unless this board wants to say we want to pay it now and take it out of contingencies. Ms. Boyce, how do you see it?
Madam Chair, the bill wouldn't come due until October 1st.
Right.
If we have a budget in October?
Understood. And just in terms of the
We understand
timing
that.
purposes.
We heard that. Thank you, Rob. Go ahead, Jeannie.
No, I'm just looking for board direction to include the funding in the budget for final.
Gary?
And I see that, I see support for that.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
We'll do so.
Steve?
I'm for it. I did want to mention one other thing that didn't come up in this meeting, which is that one of the great assets of this JPA is actually Rob himself. And if you take a look at, if you want to look at efficiencies, take a look at his earnings over the duration of his tenure with us versus the product of his work and how much it has brought to this county and Amador in the way of improvements and activities that have been beneficial, not just for planning, but on the ground activity. And I think you'll see that this is a thrifty and effective organization. And lastly, it's the only place where local people, local water agencies and counties and government can actually engage East Bay Mud in the kinds of discussions that are so essential to figuring this watershed out. We should not be their colony. We should be partners in a discussion, and this is the forum in which that discussion can take place.
I had no idea you felt that way, Steve.
I told you what Terry and I said. Tom, did you want Ginny to put this on the list?
Yes, I support putting it on for general budget. I just give one additional comment. I'm the board representative on RCRC, which stands for the Regional Council of Rural Counties, and we have been, RCRC has anyway, been a very strong advocate for additional state investment from the water bonds, et cetera, above the dams. Historically, the state always thinks that the water supply starts at the dams, and then they spend all the money either at the dam or below the dams. RCRC has been a huge advocate of many years now to put more investment into the watersheds. And of course, what comes with that generally is a whole lot more government control. If you want government investment above the dams, you get a whole lot of government conditions that come with those investments. So I'm very happy to look at your projects and see that it's, a water line and a tank replacement and a water system. We're not getting into land use planning like we had the discussion last week, where all of a sudden there's all kinds of additional conditions that come into land use planning, and the state's going to do that through AB 32, which is separate legislation. They're already doing it in the general plan process. They do it, they're doing it in the new green building code that's coming up here January 1st. I mean, they have many avenues. It's nice to see that we can do something here and put some investment in water quality above the dams and still not get into huge land use issues. So I compliment you on your selection of projects.
That's the member agencies coming in with good, sound projects, and it's a sign of the times.
Okay.
When the agencies can't pull together all the resources to make all the infrastructure improvements.
So the polling question is, I'm a yes.
You're supporting this JPA?
No, that's not the question, it's the
I'm
JPA.
still asking that question. Is he supporting this JPA?
I'm happy to see that the projects aren't just all intermingled with land use planning issues.
I support it going on the list of items for the board to consider at budget time. I'm not voting whether I'm going to vote for this at final budget or not. Okay, if there's no other questions, we are going. Rob, thank you. It's wonderful seeing you again.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
I want to do item 9, and then I'm going to take a break to get set up
I'll go talk to
for on-site.
Thanks,
you.
Rob.
Thank you.
Mr. Tryon, did you want to
I
start?
have an RCRC meeting tomorrow, and I'll be in Sacramento all day. Finding out how the state's going to bail out local governments in the new budget.
Come back with money, would you?
Yeah. I'll come back with pocket
Thank you.
change.
Good.
I'll be able to bail the county out with nickels, dimes, and maybe an occasional quarter.
Mr. Olinsky,
I'm sorry.
do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, Skip, and I'll
Gary?
locate my stuff.
Yeah, I'll go. I have on Friday at Camp, St. Daniel's Camp, Calaveras, Mariposa Community Action Agency meeting. That's at 10 a.m. And that's all I have on my calendar for board-appointed activities. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Mountain Valley Emergency Services meeting that I attended last Friday. The state right now is proposing to consolidate, actually it's the EMSA, which is the authority for the state in emergency medical services, to cut the state into 7 regions. And within those regions, we belong with one that's going to have 8 counties. As it stands right now, there are 5 LEMSAs, or local emergency services agencies, in the state that funding is given to on a population basis. And our LEMSA, which is Calaveras County, Amador County, Mariposa County, and Stanislaus County, and Stanislaus is looking into pulling out. But under the guidelines that are proposed by the state, it would take within any region of the 7 regions, at least 3 of those counties could form a LEMSA and compete for the funding that the state has available. And right now it's in the neighborhood of about $3.5 million. What's different, that's being proposed as to what's going on right now, because there's only 5 agencies, that money by population is given around, but because it's being split into multiple counties in a 7-region area, any 3 counties, at least 3 counties within the region could form their own LEMSA and then compete for the funding available in that region. And it would not be, if let's say Stanislaus pulls out of ours and they form with San Joaquin County and say Sacramento County, then they would compete with Mountain Valley for the pot of money for this region. And it's the winner takes all. It's not split within those LEMSAs within the region. So the $386,000 or whatever it is funding that we receive now, if we don't show during our competition a better reason for that money, then the other LEMSA would get the entire funding. and that's within 7 regions in in the states. Right now, there's 2 of those regions which are along the coast and going down Southern California, do not have any LEMSAs in them. But it doesn't mean that once this is done, that 3 of those counties within those regions could form and compete for this one solid $3.5 million. The funding would not go up. No matter how many LEMSAs are formed within these regions, there's still only going to be about $3.5 million available. So that's something that we need to comment on. I think we should write a letter and have the chair sign it and send it to the EMSA state authority. I sent an email to Marita in hopes that she would bring it up at the CSAC Executive Committee meeting so they could address it with the state. Tom, I think on your meeting it's going to be addressed. I think Steve Andres is going to give a presentation at that meeting coming up so RCRC can comment on it. The problem is it's on a fast track, and you can only comment between now and September 22nd. They're really trying to fast track this thing through. So I think we need to get a letter together, and I will meet with Jeannie to construct that along with Steve Andres. Maybe we can get a telephone communication with him and construct a letter to bring back to the board to have the chair sign addressing this.
Gary, in the event that there is, say, a Sacramento, San Joaquin, Stanislaus combination that does get all the money, does that mean they also take the jurisdiction that they have absorbed the money from, or are we just plain out of luck?
We're just plain out of luck.
It's that bad?
That's that bad.
Unbelievable.
That's what was presented to us.
not well
Now, the
thought out.
details of it, it's not really thought out, no. Even the fact that they can say that there's a pot of money for this region, this much based on population, that you have competing LEMSAs in them, that you should be able to split the money according to population, but that's not their formula the way it stands right now. And if a greater, it's my understanding, that a greater population LEMSA would have greater weight to receive those funds. So it's not good news.
Russ?
Okay, I just want to report that yesterday I attended the ethics training across the street at the Senior Citizens Center, and as Gary was pointing out, he told me that I should pay attention to the Senior Citizens Center and make sure I know how to find it.
And pick your seat over there for the lunches.
Right, yeah. But it was a good session and keeps me current for the next 2 years, I guess, on ethics considerations.
So you're ethical now?
I'm very ethical.
You're very?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be attending the Central Sierra RC&D meeting in Jackson on Friday. And it looks like I'm going to be in a dunk tank at the Copperopolis Town Square at 10 o'clock on Saturday. So come and dunk your supervisor. That's it.
Steve?
Yes, I have the Amador Calaveras consensus meeting tomorrow. There's a meeting in West Point from the Emergency Preparedness Committee working on a community wildfire protection plan on Thursday at the American Legion. I'm going to the CMCAA meeting, Calaveras Mariposa Community Action Agency meeting in Angels Camp on Friday morning, and in the afternoon from 2:30 on to the Family Support JPA, the Central Sierra Family Support JPA meeting, and that concludes my report.
Okay, I'm going to do show and tell. In this morning's enterprise, wash my mouth out, sorry. Then in the record is a picture of Supervisor Walensky and the hot shots and what they're doing in Glencoe to clear the area. So you made the first section, page 3. And while I'm doing show and tell. My politics and my life are on my icebox, or refrigerator, excuse me. But I had to get a new refrigerator, and I got stainless. And the downside of stainless, you got to take everything off. It doesn't hold anything. So this is something I took off my old one, Tom Tryon, for Lieutenant Governor, Libertarian. I know this is a collector's item, and so I wanted,
eBay for that.
I wanted to, if anybody would
get me
like
one
to pay me for this, Tom, you got to go put it
So you
on.
want me to put it on my refrigerator?
On your new
Well, when you put
refrigerator.
this on your refrigerator, your politics would change.
Put it on your bumper.
It was,
I think
it was on there
Stickham's gone.
it was on there for years, as you can tell. On Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to be with California State